Alright, let's be particularly serious about one thing. If you read the title to this episode and you didn't know that it was going to involve quite a lot of sex talk, then frankly you might just be a little bit naive. But that said and done, I will still give the disclaimer so that, those of y'all that need to do the necessary can do it. So here it is. This episode is going to be a very sex-focused episode. So if you're in a place with a lot of people who might not feel too welcome to this particular kind of information, say maybe they're super old or they're super young so you shouldn't play it for them, or maybe they just have opinions and shit, then this is probably a very good time for you to wear earphones, plug into something that probably wouldn't annoy them all that much, or tell them to fuck off. Either one is entirely up to you, but if you have done that, or if you don't feel like doing that, at least I've given you a disclaimer. So now I can carry on with this very sex-focused episode and discuss some very sex-focused topics. And I'm gonna start things off from the place which was the most developed by sex, and that is the internet. Now, according to the New York Post, there is an old man who said that his dog, I kid you the hell not, accidentally paid for $70 worth of pornographic material. Now, I'm sure I know what most of y'all are thinking, and by all means, you're probably right in thinking that. The only thing that I'd like to ask is... Actually, wrong question. That's not the question that I'm trying to ask. The question that I was going to ask is, what if he's actually saying the truth? Like, it's very easy to believe that this man, who is about 58 years old, as the story says, could have actually gone ahead, paid for porn and blamed his dog. It seems like it's a very, very easy escape. It's just that I really, really feel like defending this dude. So let me just read the full story, then I can get into it. So according to the New York Post, Thomas Barnes had to dispute a $70 charge with DirecTV after his literal horn dog, Marino, managed to order the Hustler channel back in 2019. Barnes' impression of the incident is that Marino had hopped up onto his bed and inadvertently hit the wrong button with one of his paws. Minutes later, the owner had an embarrassing phone call to make. Despite Barnes, a 58-year-old on Social Security disability at the time, per the News and Observer, being assured on the phone that the charge would be reversed, the steamy channel remained active. So he called again and again and again, much to no avail. End of story. Now, when I kind of look at it, first of all, the fact that his dog is a horn dog and it ordered for porn, it seems a little bit coincidental, at least in my head, because, considering that, probably it was interested in knowing what doggy style for humans is, and it's a horn dog, so it's probably, that thing. Maybe it was the one that decided to order, because I don't see how a 58-year-old man who might be a little bit horny every so often, considering that he's on Social Security disability benefits, and because he's an old man, he sounds like he's alone. He probably does get horny every so often, and he has a bit of money to spend. I don't see why he'd want to actually go ahead and pay for porn, because if he has the smartphone with the internet capabilities, then he can probably also go to the hub or whichever other site that offers free pornographic material. That's the number one thing that I'm going behind. It's probably the dog that has no concept of money that didn't feel like, spending $70 was anything. For him, he'd have probably gone for something free, kind of like this podcast, which is also quite free. And you know what you get when you click on it, because it's pretty much going to be a guy that pretty much starts with some very typical sounding instrumentals in the background saying, "Welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number one breakdown podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya." The man on the mic is a man who's now starting to think about getting a horn dog, because in some ways, we can both be dicks like that. He's a man who once believed that bukkake was a Japanese form of martial arts. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Tweetstreet, the show where we take a deep dive into Twitter, pull up a couple of tweets, and break them down a little bit. Now, as usual, if you know the drill, then you can repeat it after me. If you don't know the drill, then I'll say it for you. And if you do know the drill and you don't want to repeat it, then it's okay. It's still gonna ring in your head, because it relates to how it is that you can become a contributing member of this podcast by sending in the different tweets that you find on different social media handles. Now, the drill is pretty simple. It almost sounds like a song, and it goes like this. You see that tweet, you like that tweet, you want us to discuss that tweet, you send that tweet. you send it to the DMs of @bagakathed, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle, and I will take it from there and I will handle it accordingly on Facebook and on IG if it happens to be a screenshot, if it happens to be a screen grab. If it was pulled from Twitter and it was brought to any of those apps, then the place to send it to is @breaktime on Westside. The DMs are always open. I don't block anyone, and I usually appreciate the feedback and the tweets that some of y'all send me. Now, all that said and done, a massive thank you to each and every one of you that are currently listening, that listen all the way till the end, and especially the ones that give the feedback. I really appreciate each and every one of you that does that. It really warms my soul to know that, you listen and you feel something about something that I said, because it kind of sounds like a loving relationship, but, in a not so toxic kind of way. But anyways, all that said and done, we do have quite a number of things to discuss. I have a bunch of tweets that I need to discuss, but before I get to that, we need to go back to this whole spiritual wokeness thing that people have been talking about lately. Like, people usually talk about spiritual wokeness on so many things, but the one that I hear being spoken about the most is sex. Because for some reason, it's like everyone who usually thinks they're spiritual to a certain degree has some sort of a spiritual opinion about how sex is and how they know so much, and it's never just about the physical, and they talk about it almost as though us people that look at sex as a physical intimate act don't really know the half of it, or we don't know half of the shit that we're doing. Now, our most recent case of this happening was when the Jamaican queen of dancehall, Spice, was on the Lip Service podcast hosted by Angela E, and she decided to talk about masturbation and how apparently when you masturbate, you're having sex with demons. So I'm gonna play the clip for you, then I can get into it and I can see if this sort of spiritual wokeness is something that we can actually debunk in one way or another. So here it is.
Now, was it taboo to masturbate for you, like growing up? Like to play with yourself? Was that ever an issue?
So I used to play with myself, but when I got older and I found out what comes with it, I stopped.
What comes with it?
Yeah. I don't want people to think I'm crazy.
No, we want to know.
But it's there. When you masturbate, you're having sex with a sex demon,
Really? I never heard that.
Pull it up on your phone. It's a sex demon called Incubus. Incubus and Succubus. So you have a male sex demon and a female sex demon.
Okay.
So when you masturbate, you're having sex with a male sex demon.
Wow.
It also will be in a relationship with you and cause problem in your actual relationship.
Is that demon masturbation?
I don't know. Maybe
you masturbate a lot, but I masturbate a lot.
Yeah, my love. You have to look more than
something. Here we go. It's on Twitter. Masturbation is sex with demons. It defiles and destroys your body.
To Satan and sex.
I think you could find anything you want to find on the internet, though, because we could find the exact opposite.
No, but if you Google and
what about a sex angel?
Sex angel. Well, I read up on it a lot. So I'm a big on reader. Read up on it. It's called Incubus and Succubus or something like that.
I'm so interested in this now.
I feel like I've seen some incubus and succubus porn.
Succubus? Yeah. It's a sex demon that really literally will have sex with you, fall in love with you, everything, and it will mash up your relationship. So when your man have sex with you, it causes
because it get jealous.
All right, in respect to her fear of not wanting to be called crazy, I'm not going to call her crazy. I'm just going to say that, my goodness, that is a wild ass opinion. Okay, so here's the thing. So for those of y'all that don't know what incubus and succubus are, because I'm not really going to start defining masturbation here, an incubus is a demon in male form in folklore that seeks to have sexual intercourse with sleeping women. The corresponding spirit in female form is called a succubus. In medieval Europe, union with an incubus was supposed to result in some form of weird birth of like witches, demons, and deformed human offspring. Now, that's Google's definition of incubus and succubus. Now, I'm just trying to think about this in a very practical manner because this kind of goes against like every single thing that people know and believe about sex, even the woke spiritual people. Because there's the woke spiritual people that talk about how, if you have sex with someone, there's a transfer of energy and, you can pick up their energies and they can pick up yours. And they only ever talk about the negative ones. So I'm wondering if, maybe in this particular case, when someone's masturbating, they pick up negative energy from shagging an incubus or a succubus. Then on top of that, let me even just start with the natural one, because the natural one is the one that actually brings up more questions than answers. the primary reason for sex, the primary reason that you have the urge to have sex is mating purposes. Like, that's why from the point at which you are physically able to mate, that is when your sexual urges kind of come up. So considering that demons aren't trying to have kids, because, you know, there's no real reason to have children as a demon or as a spirit, I don't see why they'd have the urges to have sex. You know, it's kind of like thinking that a fat demon would be craving a Big Mac and yet it can't eat and it doesn't really have any particular desire for hunger. Like, there's no feeling of hunger that's in them to go and have a Big Mac because they're a demon. There's no sustenance that they're getting from food. So in some sense, this actually does kind of seem like BS. Although the other thing that I'd have probably wanted to ask is, considering that, you know, the male sex demon goes for sleeping women, and I'm assuming that the female sex demon will go for men, what if the guy is gay? Do they end up sleeping with the incubus or the succubus? If they end up sleeping with a succubus, won't that be very unconsensual because this guy is interested in men, not women? And also, I'm not terming all of this as BS, it's just that, you know, if I was shagging a sex demon and I'm doing it while I'm jacking off, like, considering that her body can be deformed and reformed, like, why not make the booty a little bit bigger and throw it back a little bit more, you know? I want to enjoy myself a little bit more when I'm doing that shit. But then again, you know, I might be wrong about this shit and I might be making fun of something that might actually be real. So I'll stop it with the 5 alive and I'll put my 5 aside and move it on. So on to our very first tweet of this episode. Having a vibrator die on you when masturbating is like having sex with a man. Okay, this I find to be particularly interesting. Not because of what she said, but because of a very interesting fact that I don't think women might ever notice up until I bring it up right about now. Now, for all the times that babes will talk about how, oh, you know, it's much better to use a sex toy, why do they need a man, blah, 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 you will never, in your life, you will never hear a grown straight man busy saying that it is better to jerk off than to have sex. Like, you will never hear it. You will not ever hear a man publicly come out to say, even though he's with his boys, that masturbating is better than having sex with a woman. And this is in spite of this guy having substandard sex offered to him a lot of times. This is in terms of a babe not giving it up or not giving it up as well in the bedroom. Like, in spite of all of this shit that guys will go through in the name of sex, you will never hear a grown man saying that they would much rather masturbate than have sex. But this other gender that always complains about not getting to their orgasm and possibly missing out on foreplay in probably 1 out of 10 guys, like, they're the ones that are always like, oh, you know, I don't need a man, I can use my vibrator. Like, here's the thing, it's not that guys actually don't have a problem with sex, because trust me, we do. We just don't talk about it as much because at the end of the day, the one thing that we appreciate most when it comes to sex is just the fact that we can have sex in the first place. Like, it's not even about how good or bad the experience is, it's literally just the fact that we can have sex. So we'll barely ever talk about how shit an experience is, not unless if we're having that particular discussion as boys. Babes, on the other hand, are the ones who will pretty much shag a dude like right now, 5 minutes later, that like, I hated how this guy's strokes were, he had a small dick, he's pathetic at foreplay, he was using his teeth. But dudes will almost never say that unless it's like an actual extreme situation. And I think deep down, most guys know the one thing that a ton of babes never really want to admit, which is we don't know enough about sex. Like, I've actually done entire episodes on this entire thing. The fact that guys simply don't know much about sex. Hell, women know way more about sex than guys do. But even then, it's not like they implement the stuff that they know about sex on us guys. They just wait for us to implement whatever they learned on them, assuming that we know or we're supposed to know the exact same thing. Which, I'm not gonna lie, sounds very, very weird, but it's not very, very unlike women. So at the end of the day, you're left with a lot of women who have sexual experiences that they're unhappy about, and guys that are literally happy that they had sex, but they don't know how well they could have done, or they don't even know how to do it well in the first place. So at the end of the day, there's a bunch of babes that are gonna be out here complaining, oh, guys don't know how to do it well, blah blah blah, just go use a vibrator at home, blah blah blah, you don't need dudes. Of which, when I think about it short term, it kind of sucks for a lot of guys because we're being compared to machines that are purpose built for that particular reason. For me as a guy, I have my natural limitations and I have so many other things that I'm built to do. It's not like you expect your vibrator to bring the bread back home or to be able to cuddle with you or to give you a massage afterwards. But I'm expected to do the same exact thing. And a lot of babes who use vibrators a lot, especially considering that to some degree, and I know this is unconfirmed, but I do think that there's a rising case of masturbation addiction amongst women. You find that for them to have sex with a guy, they have to plan it in advance such that they stop using their sex toy for days and possibly weeks before they actually have sex with a dude. Although, when you kind of think about it long term, it does mean that they don't get to shag as many dudes, so they actually get to keep their body counts low. So in some ways, them having a sex toy or sex toys is a little bit bittersweet. The only issue is, for you as a guy, having a sex toy and being public about it will make them very bitter. There's no sweet side to it. So it's unfortunate that that's the case, but I will leave it at that and I will move it on. So on to our very next tweet of this episode. Please do not try to talk to me if you know you don't have a big dick. I have been through enough, and if you got a little dick, then at least you need to have some big dick energy. If you have to ask what that means, then you shouldn't be talking at all. For clarification purposes, small is 1 to 4 inches, average is 5 to 7 inches, big is 8 to 9 inches, and huge is 10 plus inches. We don't like small or huge. Okay, understood. You don't like small or huge, and you prefer it if he has a big dick, which is anything that's 8 to 9 inches, and you do not want a guy with small dick, not unless if they have small dick energy. I know I repeated that last one, but at least it kind of gives a little bit of hope to, some of us dudes that don't really have all that much dick. But that said, I actually find it to be particularly interesting that in as much as some people can use this to say that women are body shaming men or this woman is body shaming men, I'd like to think that these babes also don't really understand that in as much as they like dick a certain way, it's not like all pussy is great. Like, guys will talk about how they like pussy, but we don't talk about it as much that even though the pussy is tight, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be all that great if she doesn't know how to perform. Or that we wish that you could ride, but unfortunately, because most of y'all aren't fit and most of y'all are just particularly lazy, when y'all get up on it, it's not like you guys last any longer than a Snap story. But the thing is, guys don't talk about that shit. Guys don't talk about that shit because we know for a fact that sex is a two-way street. We kind of have to put in that work, and if you put in the work there, then there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be great. If I'm only putting in the work there, then there's a pretty good chance that it might be great or it might be good. But the fact that you don't put in any work and you expect so much is actually a pretty big reason why you prefer your vibrator to a dude. Because your vibrator can give you the pleasure that you want on demand. You can't expect every dude to know how to give it to you well in the bedroom. Like, that's just facts. Because humans are different and I can't know how to pleasure every single woman. Although, then again, when you kind of think about it, that whole thing about the sex change if you woke up as a guy the following day, a lot of these babes usually think that they'd wake up and they'd have like 7+ inches of dick and they'd know how to give it to another woman well. Which might be true, except that I don't think all of you guys would wake up with 7 inches. Some of y'all would wake up with 2 and then you'd finally remember what it feels like to be a lesbian. Because at the end of the day, y'all are still gonna be scissoring up in that bitch. But anyways, let me not throw too many shots at the women. The entitlement is entirely theirs and I'll be entitled to ask for them to at least be fit enough to ride. So I will leave it at that and I will move it on. So on to our very final tweet of this episode. I invited him to the crib, cooked for him, gave him the sloppiest head you can manifest in your mind, let him fold me like an origami bud, called him an Uber, then blocked him and never spoke to him again. I really beat him to the punch. We are learning the game too fast. you know what? I'd actually like to meet with this shorty. Like, I'd like to slide into this babe's DMs and make sure I holla and I throw the vibes, and if nudes need to be sent, I don't mind doing it, because at least I know that when she tells me yes, I'm going over to her place. She's gonna cook for me. She's gonna, give my meat the loving that it deserves. She'll probably give me good head. I'll probably hit it really well. And then after all of that, she'll even call the Uber for me, and I will go home a happy man without having to give anything. Because honestly, if this is what you think winning is, then as a woman, and I know I'm not supposed to use that term, but as a woman, you are clearly losing out big time. Because you do not understand how it works for us guys. When we do all of the things that you just stated, there's a pretty good reason why us guys will do it. And the main reason that we do that is we understand how transactional it is. We'll hit up a babe, we'll slide into DMs, we'll tell her to come through. We'll probably make sure that there's some food, she comes over, we feed her, we talk to her nice, we get the Netflix playing. One thing leads to another, we get into bed, and I pretty much put in my energy so that I can give and get the best pleasure possible. The reason why I'm trying to get pleasure for me is because, I've put in all this work and I want some level of gratification. The reason why I want her to have a lot of pleasure is so that, my name in the streets isn't tarnished because I have bad dick. There's a reason for every single thing that I'm doing there. The food was to feed her so that I don't shag her when hungry, because she might be, a pissed off babe, or she might not let me shag. The reason why I'm even trying to shag is because I found her interesting and I slid into the DMs. Me shagging was a reward for all the work that I did leading up to me actually doing it. Now for you as a babe doing it, considering that you can end up shagging a dude for close to nothing, you can literally just open your door, walk out, look at any dude and ask them if they're willing to shag. You doing all of that is like me purposely getting a babe in the friend zone, giving her cuddles, giving her a massage, pretty much doing her work for her, cleaning the house for her and everything, helping her out whenever she wants help, listening to whatever BS she has to give. And after all of that, I ask for no sex and I try not to get into a relationship with her, and I say, you know what? It's because I love being your friend. And as a man that's trying to show that you can treat a woman nicely without necessarily trying to sleep with her, then I am trying to set a good standard and not show that men can win like this. Like, even though it's a shorty who is receiving all of that and she's so happy and she's so thankful, at the end of the day, she's still gonna look at me like some dumbass because I am doing all of this and I am not getting anything for it. Like, this is the equivalent of buying for babes drinks at the club and yet you're not going to shag them. They're pretty much just going to take advantage of you. And if you are pissed off that dudes have treated you this way and you suddenly feel like you want to get back at guys, play it like a woman. Stop trying to play it like a dude. Because when you play it like a dude, the people that get to benefit are dudes. And if you want to play it like a woman and you're a dude, then by all means, go ahead, play it like a woman. But guess what? The people that are going to benefit the most are probably going to be women. Although then again, I might not know much about that. So I want your thoughts on this, and maybe I don't know jack shit about the other tweets, so I want your thoughts on those as well. The DMs are open. On Twitter, it is at BagakaTheD. On Facebook, on IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.